Hello again, friends, and thank you for joining me for another whiskey review. This is one where I'm going to be breaking one of my own rules to bring you this review. But before we get into that, let's talk about what we'll be reviewing today. So this is the Wild Turkey Russell's Reserve single barrel, and this is a store pick. So I won't go into the history of Wild Turkey because my friend David Jennings, aka Rare Bird 101, has already produced a superb history of the distillery on both his Rare Bird 101 blog as well as in his recently released book, American Spirit. So check that out if you want more of the background on this. But this is Russell's Reserve, and Russell's, in this case, refers to Jimmy Russell and his son, current master distiller Eddie Russell, who have nearly a century of combined tenure at the Wild Turkey Distillery. So the Russell's Reserve range encompasses 6-year-old and 10-year-old small batch bourbons, and then there's also a single barrel expression that is sold at retail. And then finally, you've got the store picks, where a retailer either gets to go to Lawrenceburg or select among samples that have been sent to them, and they pick a single barrel that is exclusively theirs. Why? Why is this done? Why is this of interest? Well, from the retailer's perspective, it allows them to offer their customers something that seems unique to maybe draw them into the store. And from the customer's perspective, you get more info about which warehouse the barrel came from and how old it is. Now that they've changed the labels with the new style labels, you've got that information. You didn't have that on the old tags. But as a whiskey drinker, you get the potential to taste something that might be very different from your standard bottle of Wild Turkey 101 or even from just the plain retail version of Russell's Reserve. And what we're looking for typically is what are called off-profile barrels. And they're called off-profile because they taste different from the standard Wild Turkey aromas and flavors that you might be used to. So because of the position in the rickhouse or just the barrel itself, these can end up being weirdly and wonderfully unlike anything else that you might get from Wild Turkey just by snagging a bottle off the store shelf. So uh, there's a big but here. And the but for me is that I don't typically buy these unless I know who did the pick. And there's several reasons for that. So the first is, was it picked at all? So we like to, imagine this very romantic scenario where every store pick was made by a person or a group of people who are very passionate and very knowledgeable about whiskey, and they went climbing around the rick houses and they were knocking the bungs out of barrels and searching for the most flavorful whiskey they could find, and then eureka, they got this great barrel that tastes like nothing else you'll ever have. And I mean, look, there's some intensely knowledgeable folks out there who go looking for off-profile barrels, and I'll refer you to the interview I did with Ryan Alves of Justin's House of Bourbon for their new riff single barrel pick. And he talked about that. He talked about the fact that they want something that is going to be unique and offer their customers something that is totally different from anything else they could get. But sometimes it's a lot less romantic than that. Sometimes it's the local rep saying, I can get you a single barrel, but you don't get to choose. Or perhaps Eddie Russell did the pick on the store's behalf, which is not noted on the label typically. And in those cases, I'm told that Eddie tends to select barrels with a more conventional Wild Turkey profile. Or, and this is based on some anonymous feedback that I've gotten, maybe the people doing the picking don't know anything about whiskey. So, particularly at the larger chain stores, you've often got a panel of people that are doing the tasting. So maybe it's the store's wine buyer is on there, or maybe it's the store manager. And what do those people know about whiskey generally, or more specifically Wild Turkey? And the answer is who knows, but maybe not as much as you'd hope for in somebody that's picking a barrel for you to enjoy. So it's also worth remembering, I think, that these sell out, and there is a perception of rarity or scarcity around them, but there are more than 600 single barrel picks done at Wild Turkey alone every year. So assuming give or take 130 bottles per barrel, you're talking about roughly 78,000 bottles. So it's not Wild Turkey 101, but it's also not like Master's Keep Bottled and Bond, which was a limited edition of 14,400 barrels. So that exclusivity, that rarity, it's somewhat illusory. And in my experience, there's always another store pick coming down the pipe. So it's for all those reasons that I tend to buy store picks only from smaller retails where I'm familiar with the person who owns the store, who's done the pick, and I can talk to them about, why did you pick this? Why did you like this barrel? What were you looking for in terms of flavor? And conversely, I typically don't buy single barrels from the large chain supermarkets because who knows? I'm less confident in my ability to get something truly special in those circumstances, again, for all the reasons that we had just discussed. But I'm willing to challenge my own preconceptions, and that's why I'm going to be talking about this Russell's Reserve single barrel pick from, you can see on the tag here, this comes to us from Meijer. So Meijer, you might not be familiar with Meijer if you're not in the Great Lakes area, but it's a big box retailer, so it's like a Target or a Walmart, and they've got everything from groceries to furniture to fishing equipment, you name it. So a few times I've been in there, I've noticed that they have these store pick bottles of Russell's Reserve, and in Michigan, where I am at the moment, they are asking $56 for this one. So that's an attractive price compared to, if I go to the grocery store, it's $65 or so. For the retail Russell's Reserve single barrel. So, we get a bit more information on this one. And this was another one I was interested to try, because you can see there that CNA on the label. That is Camp Nelson A. And I've had a lot of Camp Nelson F, which has been delicious. I've had some Camp Nelson from Rickhouse E, but I don't know that I've ever had a Camp Nelson A. I pinged David about this, and he said, it's 250 yards down the middle of the fairway, classic modern wild turkey. So, with that in mind, I'm suspending my skepticism, and I'm going to be tasting this store pick of Russell's Reserve from Meijer. So here we go. Just color-wise, this is gold and orange, orangey gold, copper, all in that neighborhood. And yeah, I mean, this is, I like to think that I might have pegged that for wild turkey blind. It's very classic turkey profile. You've got some fruits in there. You get some creamy nuttiness, like a chunky peanut butter. Nice overlay of oaky vanilla. Good balance, good spice, baking spice, nutmeg. Yeah, and so look, I mean, if I had just on the nose alone, if I had tried this barrel at if I was doing a barrel pick at wild turkey, I mean, I might say like, look, yeah, that's again, it's a very solid wild turkey. Is it the kind of thing where I'm like, wow, you could only get that flavor profile in a single barrel? Like, no, absolutely not. This is very similar to what you might get in a bottle of Rare Breed or a bottle of 101. And that's the beauty of wild turkey, and that's kind of why people love them, is that from the bottom shelf all the way up to the top, you've got a great consistency, and there's a really high quality that's throughout the range. So my dog agrees, if you just heard him bark there. Yeah, so maybe some creamy orange, like an orange creamsicle, if you remember those from being a kid, those popsicles, and yeah, delightful and really, really yummy, and that's what I love about these, is they're just really nice bourbon to just sip on, and it's always great to have a bottle of Russell's Reserve single barrel in the cupboard for, people come by. This is great. You don't have to overthink it. It's not like some unicorn thing. You can get them everywhere, like I said. So, just find the lips. A little kiss of limestone there, maybe some minerality. Okay, gonna take the plunge here. Yeah. So even more so on the palate, I think this is really, I had a retail single barrel of Russell's Reserve that was just picked off the grocery store shelf, as I said, and it was really plump and really juicy and really muscular, and you don't know that you're going to get that necessarily. It's so Lloyd Christmas of Bourbon Truth fame recently described single barrels as a liquid scratch off lottery ticket, and I think that was a great description. You're rolling the dice and you're going to see what you get, and the nice thing about wild turkey again is that they can be excellent, but they're never worse than pretty good. And that is a great consistency to have, particularly if you've been experimenting with other single barrels, like, for example, Blanton's, where, I know a lot of people recently said, hey, man, the quality is really not what it was a few years ago. You still definitely get that with wild turkey. So, It's a little bit tart, a little bit sharp on the entrance, and that carries you up to kind of the middle of the tongue. And then again, you get this really peanut, nutty, salty aroma, and that's something I get a lot from wild turkey. It's kind of become a hallmark of modern wild turkey for me. And then, interesting. It turns very, very, very tart and very acidic and very lemony. Again, and there's a little bit of finish on this one. It doesn't stick around forever, but there's a kind of a residual kind of hot woodiness and maybe a little bit of minerality. So altogether, this is on the shrill sounds bad, but it's on the higher pitched end of wild turkey, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that's a meaningful descriptor to people, but Mm. So, you know what, like I feel fine about this. Like I don't feel like this was a ripoff, or I don't feel like um, I need to return the bottle or something, or I'm going to pour the rest into cocktails or something. Like this is great, and it is that's the great part of Wild Turkey, as I've said a couple times already. So just consistent, good, solid, high quality bourbon. But in terms of if I'm going to have a couple store picks a year, and again, there's 600 of these, so you see a lot of them. If I'm going to have a couple store picks a year, am I going to go back to a big chain supermarket? Like probably not. This would be something if I was going to a party and I wanted to bring a bottle of bourbon and I stopped by the supermarket and they had this one versus something else, I would probably buy this. But for my own personal drinking enjoyment, really, I want to have that connection, and I want to be talking to somebody that knows their stuff and says, look, I picked this for this reason, and here's what I love about it. It had this weird flavor profile, or it had this incredible aroma that I'd never smelled before. And so, with that in mind, hopefully this was informative and gives you kind of some perspective on how I think about these things. Please feel free to comment if you agree, if you disagree. I love the discussion and the debate. So other than that, I got nothing to tell you other than thank you again. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to spend a few minutes with me and hearing me out, and hopefully you're maybe able to taste along at home. So if you got a glass in your hand, please raise it, and cheers.